Mistakes. Have you ever made one that turned out to be a good thing? What? No, this isn't a loading error. This is an artistic design decision. I swear, I still love clothes.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
You gotta believe me, please.
Glitches and bugs are plentiful in video games. Spend 2 minutes trying to code something and I assure you, you'll understand.
That's not a semicolon. I'm gonna lose it.
While nowadays updates grace us with bugs being fixed sometimes within days of their discovery, not every parasite is a bad thing. We can keep them around sometimes. Occasionally, bugs can produce something that can benefit the game. I mean, one of the oldest examples can be seen with Space Invaders increasing difficulty curves. There are so many classic examples of accidents becoming a core part of a game. Creepers in Minecraft were a pig that woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and rocket jumping in TF2 came from a whole line of bugs originating from Doom where it sucked. Quake took it and made it a useful movement option, then Team Fortress, the Quake mod, took that and created concussive grenade jumps, which sent you even further, and then we got to TF2 and rocket jumping, which even has its own rocket jumping based weapons. And of course, we're all familiar with wave dashing being unintentional, but then being decided that it should be kept in the game in Melee, but sometimes a bug can come to do more than just define a game, and it can even define an entire genre. Fighting game combos were originally just an error in Street Fighter 2 that have now become a staple in every fighting game, ever. Try and find me a fighting game that doesn't have combos in it. It's like trying to find a video made by a white guy who puts jokes in it that only he finds funny at the start of each one.
Hey. So we may as well start with a bug that never actually affected gameplay and was just kind of funny.
So Blitzcrank used to have a bug which would send minions and monsters he killed with his E to space. And Riot just kind of kept it and made it a feature. And you know what? I love it. I love this type of silly stuff that doesn't affect the game whatsoever. It's just funny. How could you not love this? But these types of silly bugs turn features, while something I appreciate endlessly, are few and far between. I mean, another example would be the heat-seeking briefcase from Hitman where, well, it speaks for itself. But to move on from the silly fun, let's see what bugs affected gameplay in a way where players, or even the devs, liked it so much that they decided to keep it.
How would you... Come on, lads, this is just a tumour.
Silent Hill. To the surprise of no one, I haven't played this game.
I will admit it, I'm simply a horror-afraid little bitch.
Granted, it also came out before I was even a concept, so there are several issues at play, but one of the most prominent features of this game, the fog that covers the town, is actually the result of a limitation of the hardware. This isn't a bug, this is just an unwanted growth. Give me a real accident. I fear for my own safety if I say the wrong thing here. Ultra Kill has quite a few glitches and bugs that have ended up being kept within the game just because they're pretty cool. So we may as well start with one of my personal favorites, parrying your own fucking bullets. Whatever way the absolute legend that is Hakida coded in how parrying non-hit scan projectiles work, if you shoot and parry at the same time, you can somehow parry your own shotgun bullets and they'll just explode. After it was discovered and Hakida was updating the game, the only change he made was making the collision of it more consistent and removing the potential it had to cheese the style meter. This is a textbook bug turned feature, and it's also not the only thing that Ultra Kill has done. Slam storage. This is just funny. Honestly, I don't even get how slam storage could happen in terms of code, but it lets you launch enemies into the stratosphere, so who cares? A normal slam jump lets you gain a little extra height by jumping once you hit the floor, with this height extending if jumping from a higher spot. But how exactly does that turn into this? Stick onto a wall, hit slam, then jump immediately, and if you jump once you touch the ground, well congratulations, you've gone to space. Now I enjoy Ultra Kill quite a bit, despite the fact that I don't want to put in the work to unlock the secret boss. So I gotta say, I don't know what the practicality of this is, but it was kept in the game by Hakida, so it counts. However, both of the previous bugs, while kept to become features, completely pale in comparison to one specific bug that I actually want to believe isn't a real bug, but simply the real power that V1 has. This is pause punching, and it doesn't exist anymore, so really I shouldn't be talking about it, but more people needed to know that this once existed, so do with this information what you will.
You know, a lot of bugs stem from movement. I mean, the original bug turned feature was bunny hopping back in Quake 1, which got turned into an actual feature in later Quake games, and even in other FPSs. Korean backdashing in Tekken is a bit of a grey area because while it technically isn't a bug, it was kept in by the developers, and then later on in Tekken 8 they did actually go ahead and balance it so that like regular backdashes were faster, but the Korean backdash is still faster than those regular backdashes. I'm starting to realize this bit isn't a grey area. So Warframe.
Warframe used to have a tech called helicoptering, where doing a slide attack would send you flying forward, which definitely wasn't meant to happen. It got patched, but it was a mechanic that the community really enjoyed. Aside from the fact that it was so finicky, you nearly needed macros to do it. So on the same patch, they added bullet jumps, where after crouching, if you jump, you can launch yourself damn near anywhere. and when combined with the immense amount of mobility options that are already in Warframe, it's honestly one of the tightest controlling games I've ever played, even though I only played it for the first time for this video.
And you know something? It always tends to be movement bugs that later end up getting turned into features. And it makes sense, honestly. I mean, they give players the most freedom and they act the closest to actual mechanics. And they also tend to have the most discussion depending on the game that they're from. And speaking of, you always thought this was a fun little video about bugs that got later turned into features. But no, you've been fooled. You've been tricked. This entire video was just a ruse so that I could talk about Mercy and Moira movement mechanics that got later turned into their actual abilities. I lied about the loading error. Put your clothes back on. It's time to talk about Overwatch mechanics.
So we may as well start with my own kind. In Overwatch 1, Moira had fade jumps, where jumping during a fade off of a certain map geometry would launch you upwards. The most common clip you'd see for this was Volskaya First Point, and this little tech she had was just really nice, just a nice extra piece. It wasn't that hard, you could pick it up in just a few minutes, and how you applied it was how you could tell the good Moiras from the 13-year-old Rorys back in Season 9. Even though the later stages of Overwatch 1 I never played much Moira, I always enjoyed this tech. It was pretty situational, but knowing how to use it made a world of a difference to your approach. Then Blizzard decided to throw all of that out the window to appeal to people who play Overwatch by watching their monitor through their mirror. Overwatch 2 rolls around and you know what happens to Moira? Lads, this goes beyond putting a spring in her step. So they added fade jumps to her kit at all times. If you jump at any point during fade, you just get launched upwards, which at certain times can honestly be a detriment. With old fade, you would jump near the end of it to conserve momentum and carry you that extra bit further. And of course the newer fade still allows for this, but since you get launched way higher, trying to go for this momentum jump at the end can end up putting you in a nice predictable curve for a hit scan to smack you out of the sky with ease.
So while it could be argued that this change does make Moira more accessible, does having two ways to shut down my Wii U really make it more accessible to power off?
Both Moira herself and fade jumps were very accessible. They weren't platform specific or anything, you just had to jump at the right time. It gave Moira that extra bit of skill expression to give her a little bit more depth, and instead, it was effectively thrown out. But now it's time for the elephant in the room. So I've spoken about Mercy before, and some of you need to learn some human decency. Mercy Super Jump, what others call the original Mercy tech, I call my college thesis. To get anyone who isn't aware up to speed, in Overwatch 1, Mercy had a tech called Super Jump, where crouching and flying to an ally at the same time would allow Mercy to rocket herself into the air if she jumps upon reaching her target. Now there was some finesse to it, depending on the distance and how far into the dip she was when reaching the target, how high up she went would change. And there were extra techs such as sideways and backwards jumps all involving Guardian Angel, but we'll come back to those. Moving into Overwatch 2, there's been way too many versions of Guardian Angel, so let's just focus on the current one. Super Jump was officially added into the game in the form of this meter. Mercy builds up a meter as she flies to an ally, and if you jump during GA, you'll propel forward based on either where you're looking or where your direction keys are. The existence of Super Jump itself was also added into Mercy's kit by making it so that if you crouch at any point during GA, you'll rocket upwards based on your meter gained. So we all understand what's happening here, so let me say this. These are two different mechanics, and it is nowhere near as black and white as to which is better as I once thought. Super Jump, or realistically Guardian Angel bugs because there are several, gave Mercy a lot of similar things that she currently has with the new GA, though since they were bugs, obviously there was jank or more extreme conditions involved for them. Take backwards jumping, which could only happen if Mercy was literally within breathing distance of a teammate, and even then, sometimes it just wouldn't work. But on the other end of that, sideways jumps were more consistent as the player was actually sending Mercy at a more extreme horizontal angle, meaning they were effectively stronger before this was added, though that depends on the situation. But what's my main point? Super Jump used to send Mercy up and nothing more. Her other GA bugs required the player to know what they were doing, once again coming back to skill expression, but at the same time, since they were bugs, sometimes they just didn't work as the player was expecting them to. But now, Guardian Angel related tech within this new Mercy is overall just more consistent, and I have to applaud that, especially since new bugs and bits of tech arose from it. Except for the fact that the new GA also takes an element of control away from Mercy. To return to the original, Super Jump height depended on the distance from the target, not the distance travelled to the target, meaning that you could perform several different types of jumps regardless as to how close the ally was, unless we're talking extreme melee range. This graph from Neander shows the different levels Mercy could reach depending on the distance she was from the target. But now, if you want a maximum height jump, you gotta fly for a while. Obviously there's ways around this, using bits of the environment to slide and stall is one, but all super jump also allowed for whatever the hell this was on Eichenwald. It is still possible to do this, obviously, but the actual mechanics of it are just different now. Mercy and Guardian Angel are a double-edged sword. The Overwatch 1 version had a higher technical skill expression since it was bugs, meaning you had to get very specific in certain situations to get what you wanted. But for that same reason it lacked consistency, thanks to the bugginess of it depending on the tech being attempted. Though, in fairness, the only one that really had a lot of bugginess to it was the backwards Guardian Angel jump. The rest of them were all pretty consistent, if not very consistent. The new version of Guardian Angel has more skill expression through its variety. You have more options and more use cases, meaning you need to know what's best for the situation, alongside certain map-specific gimmicks, with all this coming alongside the fact that it will work properly every time. There's no right or wrong choice like I once thought there was as to which version of Mercy and GA is better. It's all up to how you feel about it, which is why I find this to be one of the most interesting bugs turned features in gaming. While it's usually a great thing when a glitch gets turned into an actual game mechanic, how it gets implemented is really important. If the way the bug worked is lost in the process, is it really a bug turned feature, or is it just a new feature entirely?
A lot of bugs have been turned into features, whether it's because the devs or players thought that they were cool, funny, or even both. And there's something beautiful about that to me. The fact that these unintended aspects of games can end up becoming some of their most beloved features, meaning that these aren't always mistakes, they're happy accidents. Even when they're loading errors, for feck's sake.